All right, welcome into episode 3 of Are You Ready for a Podcast, the official podcast of the Are You Ready for Some Football Fantasy Football League. I am obviously doing well after last night, and I'm joined again by Joe. Joe, how you feeling?
I was gonna start. I was saying probably not as well as you are right now after that Monday night game.
Yes. So I guess we can go ahead and jump in, and we'll start there. I got the win last night on Monday Night Football. One of the biggest, probably come from behind, unlikely Monday night wins in the history of the league. Off the top of my head, the one that I think of that was similar was when Austin had Tyreek Hill and came from behind on that Monday night game late in the season a few years ago. And he had it was the Chiefs and Rams shootout on Monday night. But this was a crazy win for me. So I'll sort of kick it off like I was doing last week, and then Joe, you can chime in. So yeah, like I said, the big comeback, Aaron Jones, the 4 touchdowns, obviously won me that one. It was my 20th 125-point game, which is the most in the league, and but obviously the score is 129.12 to 122.24. So yeah, my 20th 125-point game. I also have now set the record for most points through 2 weeks in league history, with 286.1. Austin in 2019 had 282.4. So narrow margin, but the most points in through 2 weeks, and it's also my third time ever to start 2-0, but the first time since 2016. So Joe, what are your thoughts?
I mean, yeah, I think Aaron Jones is the big story. I think you could probably make the case that he is the number 3 or 4 running back rest of the season. I think you would put McCaffrey ahead of him. You probably put Derrick Henry ahead of him. I think you could argue that he's as valuable as Dalvin going forward, and Kamara and all those guys. So getting the win like that is nice. Getting the win despite Tyreek Hill, who is probably your highest upside player, although maybe Aaron Jones with all his goal line
And
work is.
I'm
But
assuming that's gonna be my most points of the year right there.
yeah, you never know. I don't know. And then so getting that with Tyreek Hill scoring 4.5 points, put up the second most points in the league this week. That's good. The rest of the team, you got a lot of Mahomes long. You got some Mahomes long touchdowns, just not to Tyreek Hill. You got one to Kelsey, one to, was it Pringle or Demarcus Robinson, whoever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so the rest of your team was fine. I'll be interested kind of to see Chase Claypool has not gotten off to the best start, but Deontay Johnson is probably out this week, possibly more than that moving forward. So be interested to see how much increased target share he gets and the Steelers offense. Now, still Nick, I still really like Nick's team. He still has not gotten his like blow up week from his receivers. And Damian Harris had a pretty good game. He had a nice touchdown run. He still has to figure out that other running back spot, but I still like Nick's team a lot. Brady is just on a tear to start the year, so we'll see if he can keep that up. But I still like Nick's team. It was just a really good win for you. It is kind of those, we talked about it last week, kind of those losses you do not want to have with 122 points.
Yeah, no, for sure. It was weird game. I went from projected most points in the league for most of the early games, and then in the late games, it sort of fell apart for me. Nick took the lead. Tons of touchdowns. I think I had 10, he had 9. So definitely, when you get 10 touchdowns and you score a whole bunch of points, you hope you win. And so it's a frustrating loss for Nick. But I do think his team's going to be really good. Those wide receivers, like you said, still haven't fully capitalized yet. Even though Ridley, Lamb, and Diggs all look like top 10 guys for sure. So I don't necessarily think this is a bad performance by Nick's team. Just happened to be playing another good team with a bunch of touchdowns this week. So I agree with you. I think my team. I still have some question marks about it, but last week was Tyreek Hill, this week was Aaron Jones, keeping me afloat. Gronk 2 touchdowns every week, so that's been good so far, although unlikely to continue. But yeah, definitely a good win for me. So I guess we can move on to the high score of the week, which was Hunter. So big rebound for Hunter, taking down you by 40 points, 145.96 to 105.6. So Hunter scored the most points, like I said, this week. That's his 15th best week in his history, which is now tied with Colin for second most. And it's also his third highest score, which the second most was 147 points that he scored against you week 11 of last year. So in the last 5 regular season weeks, Hunter has scored over 145 against you now twice. And that's also the third highest score this season in 2021 and the 23rd highest total of all time. So obviously a dominant performance for Hunter. He now is 10-5 against you. Like I said last week, it's your worst opponent, and it's also his 50th 100-point game. So he's now the 7th team to have 50 separate 100-point games. What do you think about this matchup, Joe?
Yeah, last week Hunter did not start the right receivers. This week, with the exception of Corey Davis, he did. I think he's starting to get a little bit more clarity in his receiver situation. He had so many of them. We'll see when Odell gets back, but it's looking like he can start DJ Moore every week. That's a surefire starter. Julio looked really good. Should have had another touchdown that for some reason called against them. And then the running backs, like Christian McCaffrey is far and away the best player in fantasy. I don't think it's even close to a debate. Like his floor, he has as high of a floor as anybody in the history of fantasy has, I think. And then I still like his running backs. I think Darrell Henderson dealing with a little bit of an injury issue, but I think he'll be fine. And Chase Edmonds is still fine. And Trey Sermon, he had one carry and he fumbled and got concussed. So that's not too high of a sample size, but we'll see what he gets the rest of the season out of him. As far as my team goes, I'm not too concerned. I didn't get the running back performances I was looking for. That's kind of the concern of my team. But my running back, I'm still okay with David Montgomery. My running back 2 is still a concern for me. I'm kind of getting the whole Tyler Lockett and Amari Cooper experience in the first 2 weeks of the season. Tyler Lockett just is an early season monster. He just, Russell Wilson seems to always find him on those deep balls. And then Amari Cooper, after the 30+ point performance last Thursday night to open the season, puts up 4 this week and has a rib injury. So that's about par for the course with Amari Cooper.
Yeah.
AJ Brown, a little concerning start to the season. Had a bunch of drops the other day. Let's see if he can get back on track. And TJ Hawkinson is looking like a top 3 receiver or tight end in fantasy with George Kittle struggle. So really happy with him overall. Put up 105. Giants defense was a bad play. It is what it is. You lose these games in fantasy. Hunter had a really good week.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Obviously, when the team you're playing scores 145 points, you're not going to win a whole lot of them. But I think for you, the bright spot is obviously Hurts once again being really good with 21 points and a terrible passing day. So I think his floor is super high. Your running backs are pretty meh. They're pretty whatever. I mean, I think you're going to get some decent performances, but you're not going to beat people with your running backs. The thing I would be worried about, and I was kind of wanted to ask you what your thoughts are. If this starts to be a thing where AJ Brown and Julio Jones are kind of alternating the target share and what's not likely to be a super heavy passing offense, do you worry about the upside of AJ Brown, or I wouldn't, not necessarily the upside, but the consistency now that he has another weapon with Julio to compete for targets with? Because week 1, it looked like AJ Brown was the AJ Brown of old. I mean, well, he had a touchdown. He didn't have a ton of yards, but this week Julio was the go-to guy.
No, I mean, I'm not too concerned. I think last year they got rid of Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith, who took a huge amount of the target share, and basically all that's going to Julio. I think their defense is terrible, so they're going to be in a lot of shootouts. They're going to be down a lot. They're going to be in a lot of passing situations. I know they like to run with Derrick Henry, but they're going to be in a lot of passing situations. And they got I think they about split the target share. I think they had about 10 each or something like that. Just AJ Brown had like 3 or 4 drops, and so that is kind of an issue with them. But I mean, it's not going to be that bad going forward. I mean, he was really good last year, and he has a bigger target competition in terms of like a single receiver in Julio, but they did get rid of guys to clear out those targets for Julio. So I'm not too concerned. I think AJ Brown can still produce like he did last year.
Yeah, and they kind of on the same point with Julio for Hunter. I think that some life from Julio will be huge for him because he's got Lamar and McCaffrey. So he's going to be competing every week. And then you just kind of wonder what he gets from the receivers. And DJ Moore's looked really good this year. But if Julio can step up and be a wide receiver too, then I think his team is going to continue to be really, really good.
Yeah, I think I think clarity on his receiver situation is kind of the big positive he can take from this week, I think.
Yeah. And then we'll move on to the next highest scorer was the team that both of us had pretty low in our power rankings last week, which is Colin. So Colin beat Thomas, who we really like, 128 to 113. Big win for Colin. It was his, like I said last week, it was his 130th game, so he's now the 10th team to play 130 games. The first team who hasn't been in the league every year to play 130 games. And it was Thomas's 85th loss, a new league record. Ben's second with 78. So Thomas is still got a nice little sizable gap to the field in most losses. But yeah, Joe, what did you see from Colin in this one? First of all, I know this surprised you because we both across the board, you and I and also Grant picked Thomas. So what do you think about this one?
Yeah, I was looking at Colin's team earlier today, and I do think we misjudged it a little bit. I think he's bounced back really nicely from the J.K. Dobbins injury. I think he's really has not gotten he hasn't gotten an elite performance out of his running backs. Austin Eckler's had 2 pretty good weeks. Jonathan Taylor really hasn't, and he still was able to put up 128. And Josh Allen, who he paid $14 for, has still not had a good game, had like a Josh Allen type performance that he had last year. So, putting that up with the receivers, I would say the big positives for him, Cortland Sutton with Jerry Jeudy's injury got 12 targets, had a really good game. Mike Williams is looking like a legitimate starting option, and Hollywood Brown is he is, even though Colin benched him this week, he's continuing the strong end of the season he had last year, and so I think he's bounced back really well from the J.K. Dobbins injury. I like his depth a lot more. He is going to get a little boost up in my power rankings. So I would imagine the same for you. And Chris Godwin has gotten off to a really good start to the season. So I do think we're a little premature on Colin's team. As far as Haney goes, 113. He actually, I guess, if he had gotten just a really good DeAndre Swift performance, he might have been able to steal that one from Colin. Wasn't the case. His team's still good. Again, Jamar caught another touchdown. Good for his flex play. Kyle Pitts had a better game. I think Kyler, you can make the argument, is going to be the number 1 quarterback in fantasy this year. And so I would say that is a huge plus for him. Dalvin, keeps getting hurt, but that's par for the course for Dalvin. But I still like his team. Again, not too much to be concerned about. I would say just way, way bigger, way more positive signs for Colin is my takeaway from this matchup.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you on Colin 100%. I mean, I think that we questioned his depth, and I think that Hollywood Brown and Mike Williams and James White and Cortland Sutton were some guys we were down on that have so far been really good options. So I think, his depth is looking a lot better, even like you said, without those big performances at the top. And then for Thomas, I mean, it just didn't get in the end zone a lot, didn't get those top end performances, but Dalvin has looked good so far. Kyler obviously has looked elite. I do have a few questions about the Keenan Allen, Robert Woods wide receiver duo that we thought would be, a pretty solid middle to upper tier wide receiver duo, and sort of hasn't performed that way just yet. And then Melvin Gordon, I think I'm starting to question more and more now that Javonte Williams is already getting a 50-50 share. But I still like his team a lot. But definitely good win for Colin. Big prove it performance from Colin. So we'll keep on moving through. We'll talk about Ben, who took down Zach 123 to 98, another team that we had low in the power rankings, coming out and showing us that we don't really know what we're talking about. For Ben, he's now over 12,000 points. He's the 8th team to do that, and he's improved his record against Zach to 3-8. So still not one of his favorite opponents, but 3-8 is better than 2-8. And for Zach, it's his second 0-2 start. The last one was in 2018. So he's actually in 2018 he started 0-2. The last 2 seasons he started 2-0, and now he's back to 0-2. So not unfamiliar ground for Zach. Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, another team. I think Ben probably a little bit better than we were giving him credit for. I think probably the biggest reason is through 2 weeks, Cooper Kupp, I think, is a legitimate wide receiver 1. And kind of going back to the point on Colin's team, That I would say that is a little reason for concern for Robert Woods. Is it kind of seemed like a split. You didn't know who would be the wide receiver one there. It seems pretty clear that it's Cooper Kupp so far. Um, Other than that, Deontay Johnson got hurt on the last play of the game. Doesn't look like it's serious, so it looks like he might only be out a week or two. So it looks like he caught a break there. Other than that, his team, his depth is a strength, and he still has pretty good depth. T. Higgins had caught another touchdown. Darren Waller didn't have as good of a game as he did on Monday, but still, he's still probably the number 2 tight end in fantasy. Aaron Rodgers looked back to form last night, so good week for him. As far as that goes, listen, is it time to worry about Antonio Gibson like that? I think so. And is Tony Pollard's workload something to worry about for Zach? So he got, Tony Pollard had what, he outscored him, right?
He had a yeah, I think he did outscore him. I think Tony Pollard's
Yeah.
like RB9 overall right now. He had another touchdown, and I think Zeke out carried him 13 or 16 to 13, but almost a 50-50 timeshare right there.
Yeah, and Herbert just has not kind of looked like he did second half of last year, kind of like he did last year. And his receivers are pretty good. His receivers aren't good. He wasn't able to spend a lot because of how much he spent on the running backs. But Brandon Cooks and Marvin Jones looked good this week. So, I'm concerned for Zach's team. I really am. I just think Antonio Gibson and Zeke is, it's not a lot of return on production, like return on value right now. So, what do you think?
I would say I'm not as concerned about Gibson and Zeke. I think that Zeke is still going to be their number 1 running back. I mean, they're paying him a ton of money. I don't think that Tony Pollard's going to take over anytime soon. I think that Tony Pollard is going to continue to be efficient, but I think it's still going to be a sort of Chubb and Kareem Hunt timeshare where, Chubb is obviously the number 1 guy, but Kareem Hunt still is a productive fantasy player because he's efficient with the touches he gets. And then Gibson, I mean, I'm worried. I think that he should do okay. I think their offense has been all right, which is encouraging. So I'm not as concerned about Gibson as you maybe, but I do think I'm also worried about his team. I thought it was a little bit odd for him to go in so heavy on Elijah Mitchell. I don't think he necessarily got a bad deal on him on the waivers. I think he paid something in the 80s for him, but that's just
87, I think.
Yeah, he's just not the team that I would have expected. And so he's a little bit limited on what he can do on the waiver wire now. And then I like you said for Ben, I mean, I think his receivers are looking actually pretty good with Cooper Kupp being maybe the number 1 guy for the rest of the year. Probably not, but at least certainly a top 5 guy. And then Aaron Rodgers having a much better performance. So bounce back for Ben. So we'll keep going. Grant took down Morgan 116 to 79. This was the game. This was the game where Grant confidently picked himself to cover 17 points, and then by the end of Thursday night, the projections had him only winning by 1, and then he almost beat Morgan by 40. So Grant was right. We were wrong. He got the cover. He's now 2-0 for his 4th time, 2nd consecutive year. So the 2-time champ is back in the position. Last year he started 3-0, but he certainly has another good team. For Morgan, it was his 135th game, so he's now the 8th team to play 135 games. And yeah, so I don't know. Strong performance from Grant. What do you think, Joe? Was it more of a strong performance from Grant or a poor performance from Morgan?
A little bit of both. I like with Grant, like consistency is just a huge factor in fantasy. If you can just keep churning out these 115, 120 point performances, like week over week in fantasy, that's so valuable because more often than not, you're going to get wins. You're going to, be in better position for those 2 bye weeks in the playoffs. So that's huge for him. And he did that without a good Dak game at all. Dak didn't throw a touchdown pass. He scored 7 points.
He scored 116 with his quarterback, both of his starting 2 running backs, and his wide receiver 1 all being in the single digits, which is very difficult to do. Probably hasn't been done before.
Yeah, and obviously like he got 19 from his defense. That's fickle, but like if that is going to even out in other weeks because Dak is not going to be that bad in a lot of weeks, and even Saquon. Um, he got Mike Evans back on track. That was nice for him. Juju, decent game. Debo Samuel, fell and his target share fell from week 1, which it would have been hard to increase. But I mean, I think he's looking like the number 1 option on that Niners offense. So I think that's just another very startable guy. I would say with his running back too, it's still not good. I would probably lean to Fournette right now. It seems like he's just the best option in the Bucks backfield, and the Bucks are going to be upping games a lot. As far as Morgan goes, he lost Josh Jacobs before the week. He didn't have him for this week, but his team is just not nearly good enough to sustain an injury like that right now. You talk about teams like I would say Nick's team or Hunter's team or even my team or some of these other better teams, like they can sustain an injury at a time. I don't think Morgan can right now. Ronald Jones, just that he's not good right now. Joe Mixon did not sustain his good week 1 play. They were in bad game script for him. But outside of Devontae Adams and Terry McLaurin, who I really like both of them, but 2 receivers does not a team make, and so not a good week for Morgan. And I would say a huge reason for concern.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Cole Kmet's not a starting receiver. His flexes aren't good. He really needs Josh Jacobs back. Jameis, we thought after week 1 was maybe going to be playable, but now it looks like maybe not. Yeah, so I agree with you. His depth just isn't good enough to sustain any injury like that. And so there's big cause for concern. He's going to need, honestly, what he needs is Devontae Adams, Terry McLaurin, and Joe Mixon to carry his team. And that's enough to carry a team. But not if you are getting essentially nothing from everywhere else. So last week he had a goose egg and a negative performance from 2 starters, and this week he got a total of 1.2 from Chenault and Kmet. So he's just got to find some guys who can consistently get him a few points from the other non-primary positions. And then the other thing I wanted to comment that you didn't really touch on from Grant is that I think he did the best job on the waivers in week 1.
I was going to get to that later.
Snagging Cordell and Rondale for free. And now look, they both got 20 points and would be top ads this week. So great job on that for Grant.
Well, I thought we were doing a waiver wire report that we were going to talk about that.
Oh, well, we can do that. And then we got one more game to recap, which is Dan taking down Austin 105-62. He's now 5-2 against Austin, so he really likes playing Austin. And Dan is 9-2 in week 2. So his favorite week, his favorite opponent, it all lined up, and he got a big win. For Austin, he's now 0-2 for the second consecutive year. So big reasons to be concerned for Austin.
Yeah, Derrick Henry is capable of these performances, and when Derrick Henry has a performance he did on Sunday, he's most likely going to carry Dan to a win. And Alvin Kamara had a terrible game. The Saints had a terrible game, and it didn't matter because Derrick Henry was that good and Russell Wilson was good. Those are his only 2 double-digit performances, and he still put up 105. Austin is I don't know if it's time to panic. I think we're getting close. I think Clyde, you definitely could start to hit the panic button. We're going to get to what Austin could do about that a little bit later. I think Najee Harris is definitely a bright spot, had a nice touchdown catch. DeAndre Hopkins is good, but boy, oh boy, you can make the argument that Austin has like 2, maybe 3 guys, depending on how you feel about Kittle and Antonio Brown right now, who did not have good games. So, he looks like he's in a tough spot right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an entirely different situation from Morgan, where he just doesn't have the depth to sustain his top guys not performing, and Kittle has just not been delivering. I think Kittle will be fine. I still think Kittle's going to be a really good player.
And one more positive, I do think Tony Pollard, he got him for 17 last week. I think that's a really good pickup. I think he can start Tony Pollard. I think him and Zeke will both get enough work to maybe make both of them playable players.
Yeah, so we'll see. I mean, he still needs Najee and Clyde to play better than they've been playing.
Yeah, definitely.
And then Kittle to step up. I don't think it's I mean, it's bad for Austin right now, but I don't think it's unfixable. And then for Dan, I mean, Derrick Henry just came over and carried his team. I think he's still got a lot to be concerned about. The Jarvis injury. He's starting Hunter Renfro. He's benching Henry Ruggs. Which of those guys you'll be able to count on? His bench just is, kind of confusing. Maybe Osborne will keep being good, but I don't know. So I think still some reason to be concerned for Dan. But like we said last week with Morgan, when he score 105 points and win, oh well, Morgan was 99, but anytime you're scoring less than 110 and winning, you should be happy because that's essentially a free win that could have been a loss, and so
And
good to get
Dan got a
that
lot of that
Dan and
last
move
year.
on. What?
And Dan got a lot of that last year.
Yeah, he did. And so not a bad position to be in. All right, well, that finishes our recap. So we will be right back with the power rankings. All right. So that was a lengthy recap, which we, as always, apologize for, and we'll probably not change next week. But we're going to move into a new segment. So this is a segment that I came up with. We've been listening to y'all's feedback and trying to incorporate it. So this segment is going to be called "Let's Make a Deal." I just made that name up 2 seconds ago, and it is going to be
Original.
Yeah. It's very, I mean, really, actually, very creative.
Yeah.
So Joe and I are going to each give one or a couple of trades that we think would be beneficial for 2 other teams in the league that are not us. So we don't really have much skin in the game. We're just saying, hey, this would help both teams. It's just sort of another way to look at the teams and talk about some players. So I'll go first. So I know one guy who's on the block, on the trade block, is Ezekiel Elliott. So Zach's talked about how he wants to trade Ezekiel Elliott, and I don't think that's a bad idea considering that how much he has invested in running backs. He has really good running back depth with Elijah Mitchell, Devin Singletary. So I was looking through who would be a good trade partner for Zach, who needs a running back, and who's got depth to give. And the team I arrived at was Grant. So I don't know if Grant is really looking to make a trade at this time. But my proposed trade is Zach trades Ezekiel Elliott and Justin Herbert to Grant, and Grant gives him DK Metcalf, Dak Prescott, and potentially one of the 3 of Fournette, Michelle, and Williams, just so that Zach doesn't lose that running back spot, and Grant doesn't need that many running backs anyway. So I think it works out for both teams. I think Zach's got sort of a question mark at running back 2, and I think Saquon and Zeke would be a really good running back duo. You'd be sort of more of an end of season play on Saquon, but that could be a really good duo. In the draft, that would have been a super difficult duo to get. He'll still have Mike Evans, Juju, Debo. His receivers are not going to be too bad. He's got Rondale Moore on his bench, and I think that running back duo would make his team a whole lot better. You would take a slight downgrade at quarterback, and then from Zach's perspective, I think he still would have 2 solid starting running backs with some depth with Singletary. He gets a top end receiver, and then he would also be upgrading a quarterback, which is kind of what you do when you trade away a top end running back. What do you think about that deal, Joe?
Yeah, I really like it for Zach. Grant, I would be wary of giving up Dak because Dak, I think, is an easy top 5, probably top 4 quarterback, I think, this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think
so it would be a little weird.
8 to 10, so it's like a slight downgrade. But I think if he
maybe, but he just hasn't been good. Yeah, I don't know. Other than that, yeah, like I don't know if I go DK too. I don't know if I do that if I was Grant. I don't know.
Okay. All right.
But I do like it for Zach. I don't like either of my trades. The other one that the other person that was offered on the block this week was Austin with Clyde. It's really difficult with Clyde because he just hasn't been good at all, and Austin's team isn't that good and not that deep. I tried to find a couple, so I had to kind of attach assets with Clyde. So the first one I also had to grant was Clyde and AB for one of the receivers, Mike Evans or Debo, and Leonard Fournette. And I think you would upgrade a little bit of receiver if you're Austin. I don't really like at this point in time, I don't really think Clyde and Fournette are like, I don't think it's that big of a gap. So I think it's kind of fair for both sides if Grant wants to like buy low on Clyde. I don't know. I don't really love that one. The other one, which I think would be better for Austin, I don't know if I would do this if I was Colin, would be Clyde and DeAndre Hopkins for Jonathan Taylor and Chris Godwin. It's kind of a high profile one. I guess yours is high profile too. That I think you get rid of your best player in DeAndre Hopkins, but you get Jonathan Taylor, who in theory is a really solid starting running back, and you get Chris Godwin, who's still a good receiver. Again, that kind of just depends on if you believe in Clyde and if you want to buy low on Clyde. So that's kind of the best I could come up with.
Yeah, I mean the first one I don't think makes a lot of sense for Colin. I don't think you can give up Clyde with Fournette to replace him. I still think Clyde's significantly better than Fournette. I think that would be selling pretty low on Clyde. The second one, I actually like that deal for Colin. I think the downgrade from Godwin to Hopkins, but to get is a little bit of a downgrade, but to get a top end running back one would be huge for him. And I don't even hate it for Colin. The only thing about Colin is that he doesn't, I don't know, have the running back depth, but he does have James White. So I think he would still have, if you've got Eckler and Clyde and James White as your third running back, that's still a decent running back duo. So, but then you're upgrading from Godwin to Hopkins. So I actually think that's a deal that would make sense for both.
Yeah, and it just kind of depends on how much he's concerned about Jonathan Taylor. If he fully still believes in Jonathan Taylor, I don't think I'd do that if I was him.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it makes sense for both teams. I think it's better for Austin, but I think that you could certainly argue that Colin gets a little bit better because he shifts his team to more balanced than just very running back heavy. And at that point, he would have Josh Allen, who you could argue top 3 quarterback, Eckler, who has the upside to be a top 5 running back, and then Hopkins, who we probably both think is a top 3 receiver. So at that point, you have a stud at every position. So I think that's actually a really good deal. So that concludes our segment where we give unsolicited trade advice to random people in the league. We'll see if you guys like that, or if y'all don't. We may keep it around, we may not. But we'll move on to the power rankings. This is the most controversial point of the show. And as always, we'll start from 12. We'll work up to 1. Joe and I will each give our power rankings. We're going to try to talk more about the comparison between the teams and what's changing, and sort of leave out some of the analysis that was already done in the recap. So I'll kick it off with the 12th place, and I've got Austin at 12th. I think that it would be hard to realistically move him up. I had him at 11th last week, and his team just had another dud week. He's got the lowest points in the league by almost 30, and we just, neither of us like his depth. So I've got Austin at 12.
Yeah, I did too. He's lowest points in the league, and he's one of the 2-0-2 teams. So I think it's kind of a hard argument to for anything other than last for him right now.
Yeah, I don't think it's impossible for him to turn it around, but I think
I don't think it's 2 games into a 14-game season. I don't think anybody's season's over by any means. I'm a little concerned for a couple teams.
Yeah. And then at number 11, I've got Morgan. I moved him up to 9 last week from 11, and now I'm just moving him right back to 11. It was a bad week for Morgan. He's now second to last in points. Him and Austin are the only 2 teams that don't have 200 points yet. And I think he's just got question marks. The Jacobs injury will get better, so maybe this is a little bit premature to bump him down. But he got a non-convincing win in week 1, and then just a dud in week 2. So I have Morgan pretty solidly at 11.
Yeah, I had Morgan at 9, both preseason and after last week. I moved him down to 11. I think I'm now realizing that his flexes just aren't as good as I thought they were. Ronald Jones and Laviska Shenault. I'm still holding out a little bit of hope for Laviska. And then the rest of his team, outside of his 2 receivers and maybe Joe Mixon, he's got a lot of holes.
Yeah, I mean, what moves him down for me is really that Joe Mixon came down back to earth. If Joe Mixon could be a top 3 running back and just carry his team, then that's fine. But if that's not going to happen, then I think his ceiling is pretty low. At number 10, I've got Zach. I've got him down 2 spots. He's 0-2. And like we said, we have questions about his running backs, which he invested so heavily in. And I still don't really love his receivers, even though they've been playing decent so far. So I got Zach at number 10.
Okay, I have Ben at 10. I think just not. I think Cooper Kupp, I guess, would be the biggest reason he moved up, and just Morgan and Austin's 2 bad weeks. But I still don't love his team. I think it's you got Cooper Kupp, you got Waller, but outside of that, I'm struggling to see the upside there. But it is good. Like I would say I think he's in right now, he's in a little bit of a mini tier above Morgan and Austin.
I like Ben. I moved him up 3 spots. I had him at 12. Now I'm got him at 9. I'm starting to realize that if Cooper Kupp can really be that top 5 wide receiver that he's been being so far, and he's also got Darren Waller, we both think his running back duo is okay. So that moves him up, I think, above the teams below him, just because he's got a little more balance than Zach, with maybe still some of the top end upside if Kupp can be that guy. And then, so yeah, that's what brings him up. Is mostly that I'm rising on Kupp.
Yeah, I moved Zach down to 9 from 8, I think. And it's kind of that concern about, I'm not as concerned about Zeke. I think it seemed like I was when we were recapping, but I'm not as concerned about Zeke. I am concerned about Antonio Gibson. And yeah, Herbert hasn't gotten off to the start you want. You don't love the depth there. So yeah, I got Zach at 9.
Yeah, and then also, I mean, just being 0-2, that's why I put Zach below Ben, because he's a whole game behind in the standings is important when it comes to making the playoffs. And then number 9 or number 8, I'm sorry, I've got Dan. So I mean, he did get a win this week. Derrick Henry looked outrageously good, but I think that outside of Derrick Henry, there's a lot of causes for concern, and I'm concerned about Kamara. So I moved him down 1 spot to 9 or to 8.
Yeah, this one's close for me. It's really close. I think I'm gonna do Colin. He moved up from last to 8th or 11th, 8th. We had been last week. I think his team is deeper than Dan's. Dan is my number 7, but I like Dan's upside more. So that's kind of the balance I'm trying to differentiate between here. So I would say Colin at 8 and Dan at 7. Very, very close.
Yeah, I have him close as well, but I got Colin at 7. Actually, I don't think I have him that close. I like Colin's team better. I think his running backs are still really good. Taylor and Eckler, is still a very good running back duo, and his receivers are just way, way better than Dan's. So, I mean, I think Hollywood, Mike Williams, Godwin, and then he's got James White on his bench. His team's deeper. His receivers are better. I like the Tunyon signing. Late on Saturday, I believe he snagged Tunyon, and that shores up that tight end position. So I actually feel like Colin over Dan by a not insignificant margin. So I got Colin at number 7.
Okay. Yeah, Dan at 7. I have Thomas moved down to 6. Not really anything to be concerned about. I've just got leapfrogged in the rankings 1 spot. Still think his team's good. Still like his starting lineup, kind of minus his second flex, but he can figure out that Melvin spot during the season.
Yeah, that's probably fair. I have myself at 6. Mainly I just I just jumped Grant up the rankings, and so that moved me down to 6. If I'm looking at Thomas's team, I don't know. I mostly kept Thomas ahead of me because I had him ahead of me last week. But yeah, so I got me at 6. And then I have Thomas at 5. So between me and Thomas, I think it's really close. Dalvin and Aaron Jones are probably close in the rankings. I still would prefer Dalvin. I still would probably take Kyler over Mahomes. DeAndre Swift, really good second running back. I do worry a little bit about his receivers. I think Pitts is going to be better than Gronk in the long run. So I feel okay with Thomas ahead of me as 5, and I'll be at 6, down 1 spot from last week.
This is a reverse jinx the likes the world has never seen. I have Grant at 5, and you kind of have to move him up after. I would feel weird not moving him up after 2 115-point wins. So I still don't like his running backs, but he does have Cordero now, so I don't know. His team's just solid. Like, I don't know what you want me to say. Like, his team's solid. Like, he's going to be a playoff team.
Yeah, I have Grant moving up to 4. I mean, I think that he proved that this week that he can win with his running backs doing nothing, his quarterback doing nothing, and his wide receivers just carrying him. And so, I mean, his running back depth got better. Henderson's a little banged up. That's going to give Michelle some opportunity. If that becomes a timeshare, he's got Rondale Moore on his bench. I think he's played the waiver wires really well. I feel pretty solid with Grant at 4, and I think Saquon's only going to get better.
Yeah, I have myself at 4. I was number 1 last week. I'm concerned about the running backs. I just I don't know. I feel again, I like Hunter beat me, and so I would kind of feel weird that he beat me by a lot. So I would kind of feel weird keeping myself ahead of him. So I have myself at 4, and I have Hunter at 3 because I don't know. We're both 1-1, and we're pretty similar in points. I think I have a few more than him because he had such a bad week last week. But yeah, he beat me so head to head. So there's like the college football playoff.
Yeah. So I did like the AP poll, and so I have you ahead of Hunter. I have you at 2, Hunter at 3. I feel the teams are close. I think I'm a little bit higher on Montgomery and Robinson, and I think Jalen Hurts is really good, like I've said it several times. So I still have you just a slight touch ahead of Hunter, but I think y'all are really close at 2, 3. I think Hunter's depth is a little bit better, but I think he's got a bunch of super low ceiling running back twos. He does have McCaffrey, which probably is, I mean, that like you don't really have an answer for McCaffrey, but I think you've just got so many more guys that could go off. Hawkinson, I think, is going to be really good. I'm not wild about Fant. And so I still have you at 2. I think your wide receivers are going to give you just a ton of upside. And I think that your floor is going to be really high with your running backs still going to be high volume guys. And like I said, I mean, I think Jalen Hurts, he's not as good as Lamar, but I don't think he's that far off.
All right. I'm kind of doing college football playoff here. So I had Nick penciled in at 1 before the game last night. I thought Aaron Jones was going to get his 15, whatever. You were going to lose. I was going to put you like 3. Aaron Jones scored 38 points. I don't think you're the only 2-0 team that is the highest scorer. You're one of 2 2-0 teams, and you're the highest scorer in the league. I think you have to be at number 1 as of right now. So I have you at 1. I have Nick at 2. It's very close. This is all fluid. These are going to change a lot from week to week. That's not to say your team is by far the best. I don't think it is. I do think it has ridiculous upside, but yeah, I have you at 1 and I have Nick at 2.
And so yeah, I mean, I obviously had Nick as the last team left at 1. I think I'm just growing on his running backs. I think I got the win on Monday night, but like I said, I'm doing AP poll, so we really could just ignore that. And I think that it took an outrageous performance from a 10 touchdown week is very non-repeatable. So I think that I really like all of his receivers. I think Allen Robinson as your 4th receiver is ridiculous. And then I think that his running backs are both very startable. With Harris has been good this year. I mean, Harris is the top 20 running back, and then Tyson Williams has been really good this year as well. And then he's got Javonte, who's only going to take on more of a role later in the year. So he's at 1-1, but I still have him at number 1. I think that his team is very, very good, and I think that the schedule should hasn't done him any favors because he should be 2-0, and so I'm not really holding that against him. So I've got Nick as my number 1 team, which I think you had him as your number 1 team originally, and I've been kind of slowly moving him up.
No, and I get that argument. I just I think at some point we got to reward on-field performance, and you're one of 2 2-0 teams. You're the second highest scorer 2 weeks in a row. You're the highest scorer in the league. That merits number 1.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like, with power rankings, I think you're right. There's a little bit of balance. I kind of think of power rankings as like who's got the best chance to win the league right now. And so I think that wins help because, the more wins you get, the easier it is for you to make the playoffs. I was looking up some stats, and 7 of 8 teams in league history that have started out 3-0 have made the playoffs. Now, this is a 14-week season as opposed to a 13-week season, so I'm giving a little more weight to what do I think about your team going forward compared to what you've done already. We've only played 2 teams. It's a small sample size. And so, some teams have just gotten screwed. Like if you look at points against, Dan's got 180 points against, and Colin's got 270. So Colin's opponents are averaging 45 more points per game. So that obviously the records, I think, can belie that a little bit. But okay, so the biggest difference is obviously you have me at 1 and I have me at 6. But other than that, we're semi comparable in our rankings.
Yeah, and this is all, like I said, this is all very fluid. I think as the season goes on, I'll be I'll have more of an idea, and I think my rankings will change less. But as of right now, you're getting 2 and 3 game samples here, so I think it's just a little bit more fluid and earlier in the season.
Yeah, that I mean that's fair. I mean, I didn't have anyone in the same spot as last week. I think you only had one person, so definitely the rankings are moving around a lot. So a couple of more things before we have our Hunter on as our guest and get to our recap. A couple of milestones to watch in week 3. So Hunter's next 125-point game will be his 20th. He'll be the second team to do that if he can. Thomas's next win will be his 50th. He'll be the 11th team to do so. Nick and Morgan's next wins will be their 65th. So that'll be 7th in the league to that mark, whichever one of them gets there first. For Grant, he'll play his 145th game this week, so that's second most in league history behind Joe. And Ben and Dan will both play their 140th game, which will be the 5th and 6th to that mark. Zach will play his 100th game, so he'll be the 11th team to 100 games, the first non-original team to 100 games. And then Austin, if he could score 100 points, it will be his 35th 100-point game, which will make him the 11th to that mark. And then, like I said, 7 out of 8 teams that have started 3-0 made the playoffs. So for Grant and I, a 3-0 start could be big. For everybody else, if we look at the standings real quick, which I guess we haven't talked about a ton, but Grant and I are 2-0. There's 8 teams at 1-1, and then Zach and Austin are at 0-2. So I think that with a 14-week season, 1 game separation might not mean that much, but everyone's goal should be to stay at or above 500 throughout the year. So for all the 1-1 teams, this is the point where you either go up a game or down a game, and then you have more pressure on you the next week. So, Joe, anything else to add? We haven't talked about any other random thoughts.
No, I think we went on for way too long.
Yes, that seems like it's becoming a tradition. I don't know that this will ever get down to 30 minutes. But all right, so up next for you guys will be the interview with Hunter and the picks.
Okay, we are now joined by reigning league runner-up, 4-time league runner-up, Hunter.
Evergreen tweet.
Always a bridesmaid. So really, my first question, I only have a couple, is you have Christian McCaffrey, you have the best player in fantasy, you spent $79 on him. How much were you willing to spend for him at the draft?
I think that's probably about close to the max of what I would have paid. I probably would have gone over 80, maybe like 82, but like I wouldn't have gone much more than that.
Yeah, because I was thinking about this earlier, and like I think everybody just overthought everything. It's like, just take McCaffrey, he's by far the best player, and just like figure the rest of it out. Like,
it wasn't even the most expensive.
Yeah, and he wasn't. Yeah, and Dan spent more for Kamara. Really, my only other question is, how are you mentally preparing for a fifth straight, or not a fifth straight, but a 5th runner-up this year?
I've just accepted it.
All right.
So, ready for second place again.
He's already mentally prepared. So my question is, so we obviously, both Joe and I liked your team. I think I had you first in the initial power rankings. Joe had you 4th, but we really liked your team. And then week 1, you kind of had a dud. 80-something points and got a loss. Were you concerned about the week 1 loss, or you were confident in your team?
I was still feeling confident in the team. I knew with my wide receiver situation, it was kind of like throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. Can I curse on this?
Yeah.
All right, go bleep that out.
Yeah, we'll cut that part.
Yeah, it was just kind of crapshoot. Like, take a bunch of flyers, or not really flyers, but like more high upside guys, and just kind of see what sticks. So, like, I kind of got screwed on the Ayuk thing, but I don't know. I still have confidence in the team for the rest of the season. Like, Corey Davis popped off on the bench, so picked him this week, and then obviously kind of had a stinker. So I think it's going to take a little bit of working out, seeing which guys are actually hitting and which guys aren't. But
follow-up question: how do you feel about Kyle Shanahan?
Sermon was on a shit list, got off, and then immediately got concussed. And it seems like Ayuk is like working his way off of it, but I don't know. The 2 targets. last game, I think, after 0 week 1. So, we're trending in the right direction at least.
Okay.
But
So you're coming around on Shanahan?
oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think I still really like your team. I think you have running back depth, which is what everyone wants. With Davis, Edmonds, Henderson, Sermon. I think the none of those guys have a huge upside, but you already have that with McCaffrey. So you don't need that. What would you like? What are you most concerned about on your team, or what are you looking at improving? What's your thought process there?
Trying to work out a trade with him right now.
No, I'm just wondering. In general, he's made it clear that he does not want my trade offers. That's already been established.
Parker's just peddling Hubbard to me actively.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, obviously McCaffrey injury, I feel like is like the biggest concern, like knock on wood. But other than that, I'm not trying to swing any big trades, just kind of like work around the edges, I don't know if something big becomes available, then sure. But like, I feel like the team's fine, like tinker with it a little bit and just kind of ride McCaffrey and fill out the rest,
Yeah, I think that's a good strategy when you have McCaffrey. What about when you look around the rest of the league? I don't know how much you pay attention to what everyone else is doing, but is there another team that you think is going to be really good, or is there another team that I guess I'll put it this way: give me one team that you're scared of that you don't want to play, and then one team that you think has been underwhelming. I'm not gonna make you do full power rankings. Just shit on someone and tell somebody you think their team's good.
So I really like Grant's team a lot. I know y'all wanted me to say one of y'all's teams, but both of y'all do have great teams. But we'll save the ego stroking for later.
Parker does not want you to say that about his team.
Yeah, no, I can't have that.
Sorry, we gotta ride the reverse jinx.
Yes.
Yeah, your team sucks.
Okay, I agree.
No, but I feel like Grant has a very solid team. There's someone else. I took some notes on this earlier and kind of forgot everything that I, looked at and was going to talk about.
That happens.
Obviously, both of y'all's teams are good. I don't want to have to face either one of y'all in playoffs. Oh, look, I'm talking
You always
about
beat
playoffs.
me, so I don't think you have to worry about me.
Yeah, I like Nick's team a lot too. I think, I mean, everyone slept on Tom Brady again because he's decrepit and old, but I mean, still putting out tons of fantasy points.
There's a tight spiral.
Better than Peyton.
Yeah.
You just can't count them out. That's why.
What's your strategy when you're like looking at the waivers or trying to make a pickup? What's your strategy? Do you just like look at their points and figure out who you want? Do you like watch a lot of the games? What's your thought process? Grant told us he doesn't really hardly watch the games and he's dominating the waivers. So where do you stand on that discussion?
I try to shoot for high upside guys just because, I mean, you could pick up a guy and sit him on your bench for 3 weeks and drop him, if he's like a marginal type, worth having on a team, but not worth starting. I don't think that's really worthwhile unless you're concerned about your depth or something. But like for me, where I feel like my depth is pretty solid, like the guys I'm targeting in free agency are going to be guys that could, I could see myself starting, if they pop off or, maybe it's a young guy that's, gaining traction with the team or whatever. That's primarily what I'm looking for.
That's fair. That's good strategy. All right. I guess we can go ahead and move on to the picks. So we'll try to make it quicker than last time because Joe and I usually end up echoing ourselves. But Hunter, if you have any thoughts on any of these matchups, feel free to just jump in and say whatever you want about the teams. I mean Joe too, but Hunter, we haven't heard from you as much. So we'll talk. So the week 3 matchups. We'll start with you. So you most projected points this week going against Thomas. You're a 3.6 point favorite. A couple of milestone watches in this game. So Hunter, your next 125 point game will be your 20th, which would tie the league lead with me. And your I wrote that down twice. And then Thomas's next win will be his 50th. So he'll be the 11th team to get 50 wins if he can win this one. So what's your brief thoughts and then a pick? with the spread.
So I have two guys playing on Thursday night, which I absolutely hate. Like I'm a big start the guy on Monday night. Always like avoid starting the guy on Thursday night if you can. And I have both McCaffrey and DJ Moore playing Thursday night, which I don't know. This gives me a bad feeling. I would definitely go Thomas here. With the spread obviously, but
So you're taking
I hate
Thomas with the points, with the 3
right.
points.
I hate the
Yeah,
Thursday night
that is
starts.
true. That's a bad feeling. That's like I better be out in front by 30 points after Thursday night, or else I'm going to be feeling bad about it.
Exactly.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I'll take Thomas with the points. Like you said, I don't like that situation on Thursday night. I think that could be a low-scoring game, a sloppy game. Lamar could just absolutely wreck Detroit and just, win you this matchup by himself. And then Chase Edmonds against Jacksonville is a good matchup, but I'll take Thomas with the points.
I also had Thomas.
Oh, thanks, guys.
All right.
Well, it's like the all the pick shows when everybody picks one team, the other team wins. So you're welcome.
Yeah, we could have a little
Appreciate
screenshot where it has all of our names and what we picked, and then that can go on freezing.
It's more bulletin board material for the team.
Yeah, there you go.
Listen, I picked myself against you this week and you won, so there you go.
All right, we got the next one, another close matchup. Joe, you're a 2.2 point favorite against Colin this week. So what are your thoughts on that one, Joe?
I took Colin because Amari Cooper right now is questionable and he plays on Monday night, which I hate because if he's a game time decision on Monday night, I'm gonna have to pick up like a fourth Cowboys receiver or Eagles receiver or something like that in case he doesn't play. So I kind of hate that. So I'm gonna pick Colin.
Nice confidence. Hunter, what do you think?
I like Joe here. Again, the Monday night guys. Always feel better about Monday night guys than Thursday night guys. And then I think AJ Brown is due. I think he's one of those guys that's like boom or bust, right? He was bust last week. It's time for a boom. Thank God it won't be against me.
Yeah, I like that. I like that thought process. I'm going to take Joe too. I think Jalen Hurts is going to have a huge game against Dallas. Dallas is a disaster of a pass defense. We saw them get shredded twice already. So I'm going to take Joe. I think the 2.2 points shouldn't be a problem. I mean, if he wins, he's probably going to win by more than 2.2. This is a very close spread anyway. So our next matchup, we got Grant as a 9.4 point favorite against Ben. We said we're rising on Ben, but we all like Grant's team. I'm going to sort of go against the grain on this one. I'll take Ben. Well, I don't know if it's against the grain because I haven't heard Joe's pick. But I'll take Ben. I thought his team looked good last week. I think Carson and Gaskin are kind of due for big games. So I like Ben in this one.
I like Grant. I don't think Deontay Johnson's going to play for Ben. So he can put in Devontae Smith against Dallas. So that's might even be better. But I still like Grant. I think his team's better. Dak is in that Monday night game too. I think he has a bounce back.
Hunter?
I like Grant as well. Sticking with the Monday night theme. Dak Prescott on Monday night.
I like this as a main decision-making process for making picks. Who's got Monday night?
It's going to be a pretty high-scoring game though. So.
And then we've got Zach as a 10.2 point favorite over Morgan. I know none of us are, well, Joe and I are not super high on Morgan's team. Well, what are your thoughts, Hunter? You can lead this one off.
I think I'm legally obligated to pick Morgan's team after losing to him week 1. I love Stafford this year. I feel like him and McVay are like, I don't know, a match made in heaven or whatever you want to say about it. Like, I don't know. I felt good about him going into the season.
Would you say he's better than Kirk Cousins?
Yeah, I would say he's significantly better than Kirk Cousins and Matt Ryan.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Okay.
I'm a Kirk Cousins guy. Put me down as a Kirk Cousins guy. That just sounds good. So
anyway, yeah, I like Morgan. I was targeting Stafford in our auction, and I don't know, felt like I had to take Lamar with the value I was getting him at, but I really like Stafford this year.
I agree. I like Morgan as well. Not as much for Stafford, but just because I don't think Zach's team is that good, and I don't want to take him as a 10-point favorite. What about you, Joe?
I'll be different. I'll take Zach because I really just don't really like Morgan's team, and Josh Jacobs might not play for the second week in a row, and I don't know. Antonio Gibson's bound to have a good game one of these weeks, right? Then Zeke. I think Zeke actually is going to be better. One thing we forgot to talk about with when we were talking about Zach's matchup was he had like a 70-something% like snap percentage. So he is on the field a lot more than Tony Pollard. So at some point it's got to even out.
Yeah, I think that's true. So we'll move on. I take on Austin. I take on Tony Pollard this week. I'm an 11.1 point favorite. I don't love that line. That's a big line. Too many points. I'll take Austin.
I'm going to take you because Austin seems not very good and your team is.
Toxic, Joe.
Just being honest here. I'm paid to give my honest takes.
I like Austin here. It's a big spread.
Speaking of big spreads, Nick is a 14.7 point favorite against Dan, who, as of my checking earlier, was the lowest projected points in the league. So even bigger line there. If I thought 11 was too many points, I obviously think 14 is too many points. So I will take Dan in this one.
All right, well, I'm going to cheat a little bit here because Dan has Jarvis in a starting lineup, so he's obviously going to take him out. And I just inserted Henry Ruggs. Like I just figured if he puts Henry Ruggs in, that's another 9.5. So that would make Nick a 5-point favorite. So I took Nick -5. I have an altered line.
Okay, smart.
Joe's got a teaser.
Play.
Yeah,
Teaser. What about you, Hunter?
Yeah, I'll if we're counting Dan starting Ruggs, I like him. If
he's not going to start
then,
Jarvis. He's not going to start an injured player.
You never know. Have you heard from Dan? We know Dan's
we'd have a
Jarvis has
little
good
e-board
leadership.
issue
Don't
if he did.
forget. Jarvis.
We'd have a little e-board issue if he
Coach
did.
on the
Right, you got to calculate in the intangibles of Jarvis Landry.
Yeah. Also, what kind of
True.
question is that? Have we heard from Dan? No one ever hears from Dan.
Just make it a point.
Especially when it's time to pay league dues. No one hears from Dan.
Oh, I need to crack down as league treasurer.
No, I got it. Eventually, it's been ironed out.
Oh, okay.
We
We
have
had some guys lined up to go break his kneecaps behind a building, but
I was gonna say, did you make him pay interest on that?
I have obtained $25 or an item of equal value from Dan. Okay, so that's our picks. Just to recap, we were all 2-4 last week, so I'm now 3-9 on the year. Joe's 7-5, firmly in the lead. Hunter, you're in the crowd, so y'all are 2-4 so far. So thanks for coming on the show. And good luck this week against Thomas. Should be a good matchup. Game of the week, I'd say Hunter versus Thomas.
appreciate it. Have a good one.
All right, see ya.
See you, Pluck or something.
Yeah, see you in a few minutes.